As promised, we're going to be dealing with the lever-based escape from the mount now. So, for a couple of different reasons, you may find yourself unable to get your elbow inside of your partner's knees. You can see here, Rory's in like basically almost a high mount. Like his knees are pretty much in my armpits. He's even able to resist my knee in the back for quite a bit longer than he would have if he were lower to my hips. So this could have been the result of you just allowing somebody to get closer to your like upper torso armpit area than you maybe wanted to. Or if he's a little bit lower, sometimes people are really diligent about keeping their knees together, and they might have shorter limbs and you might have longer limbs. And you know, you're doing this, you're trying to get on your side, you're trying to get your elbow in, but you can't do it and your elbow stays on the outside. Or you got your elbow in for a second and he grabbed your triceps and pulled your arm up. And any number of reasons, you will end up here where you've successfully framed your partner's hips, but you couldn't build the scaffold. So if I can't build the scaffold, if I can't keep the space between Rory's knees wide open, I'm really I'm wasting my time by trying to do that sort of frame and hip escape because I don't have one important aspect of the frame. I do have another important frame though, which is the one at the hip. And so as I'm doing this constant like threatening of the knee and the butt and the bridge to affect my partner's center of gravity, I can start to make this leg light. And because my arm's already here, it's a relatively easy task to reach down and grab this ankle. In the gi, you can certainly use the gi pants, but you can see how like far up Rory's leg the gi pants are. This is not a great lever point. So this is actually quite a bit better, is like physically grabbing the foot if you can reach it. Only try to lift the leg as part of a bridge and knee in the butt. If Rory's weight is settled back down
I've had
here,
guys literally grab my ankle and just like trying to bicep curl, and it's like...
Yeah, like there's just absolutely no chance you were lifting this leg when your partner's weight is back over your hips and their hips are relatively over their heels. So I knee him in the butt and I capture his ankle to the best of my ability in my knee pit. The closer it is to my knee pit, the more of a lever control I'm gonna have. I also want to be slightly like extending my calf into the top of his foot to create a little bit of a wedge. If I just have his leg in my knee pit and I'm not driving towards his foot, I'm just minimizing the lever effect. The other thing that's important here is when I start drawing his leg away, because what I'm going to be doing is trying to get his right leg off the mat the same way we were doing it before, just with a different mechanism. If I do this alone, and you can see like Rory's legs are fairly long, I'm struggling to get his knee off the mat. So the lever by itself is not going to be enough. What we need is a lever combined with a good fulcrum. The fulcrum is going to be my thigh. So I'm driving my thigh up towards me as I draw his leg back. That gets his knee off the mat. Once his knee is off the mat, I'm actually back to my scaffold, and I could potentially start just escaping to butterfly guard. However, so if you can do that, great, please do. However, depending on how this goes, you may not be able to get this leg, this left leg, underneath, and you will have to settle for half guard. The way we will do that is to continue to extend the leg and get our left knee pit now around our partner's right knee if we're doing this on the same side. If I stay on this side, I'm unlikely to be all that successful. For one, he will be able to find an underhook, and now I'm really screwed because he's broken my posture and my structure. Even though I'm hanging onto his leg, he will free his leg momentarily. So as soon as I get his knee into my knee pit, I need to switch sides. And the more frames I have in between us now, the better, because I can start to bring my top knee in. And this is one of the examples of where bringing the top knee in is not a bad idea, because he's in my half guard. Him smashing this leg down is less of an issue because I can support it with my other frames. If I didn't have other frames, he could smash it down, but at least he's still in my half guard, so he's got a lot of work to do before he can bring that pressure to bear on me. Don't let it happen. Like guys that are good from here will absolutely kill you, but you still have something to offer. So that's the important part. So now I've got all these frames in, I can start to push away and get myself to a guard where I've got as many frames in as possible. Alternately, let's give the back angle of this. So I got to here, I couldn't quite get my frame and hip escape, so I trapped this ankle. I brought, so you can see how much I'm extending my right leg. You can see how my leg is kind of slipping off of him. I need to try to maintain the contact with my calf against his foot. And that's what's enabling me to now bring this knee in to adjust the fulcrum to lift his leg up. As soon as this leg is in the air, and by his leg I mean his right leg, as soon as that leg is in the air, I'm in the half guard. Previously we talked about switching to this side and starting to frame. But what we can also do now is bump him and enter the deep half guard. If you're not familiar with what that is, you can probably ignore everything I'm about to say. But this is also a really good option now because I've created a longer lever. His hips are still very close to me, but I should be able to go out the back and re-guard that way. So, like, if I'm gonna go to half guard there, that's actually my preference.
Yeah, I usually go deep half because you're not gonna get much room to work against much better guys.
Exactly.
So as you're going to get better and better pressure from your opponents and your training partners, you're just like, man, I need to be able to work from like very small spaces.
Yeah, and so it's really important to emphasize that this capturing the ankle thing is only useful if you have some kind of framing or off balancing mechanism that's going to affect your partner's hips or your torso. Because if all I do is just get over here and capture this ankle, even if I get all the way to here, I'm still facing the wrong way to be effective.
This would not be a good half guard.
Yeah, this
is better than mount.
Yeah, exactly. Like, if this is all you can get to, that's fine. But the next battle just becomes the battle for the underhook and the crossface. And that's a battle that's hard to win because of the angle of my torso. It's really tough to stop him from stripping this this clamp that I've got and start to remount me, or at least get back to 3/4 guard. And again, you're gonna have a lot of work ahead of you. Whereas if we get to here and we do this, and now we focus on framing again. So I'm using that same sort of scaffold as close to his hip or his torso as I can get it, and I'm working to lift and get my knees to my chest, supporting my arms with my legs, supporting my legs with my arms. I've recreated that scaffold. He's in my half guard in the same like cosmetic way, but all of a sudden I'm back to a very strong guard where I've reestablished my knee elbow connection and I've got a bunch of frames inside. So don't think that getting your partner in the half guard, is the objective of this. The objective is to lift your partner's knee, create enough space and movement that you can start to recreate this knee elbow connection and turn to face your opponent with some sort of usable guard, or utilize the deep half guard if that's in your toolkit.
One little detail that I also like when it comes to trying to lift that knee up is getting my bicep underneath the knee. So as we're here and I can't get it, I lift here. Sometimes it's going to be very difficult with the frames to try to even push this up and bring that leg under, depending on the size of the opponent you're dealing with. A lot of times what I like to do, especially with my lankier body, is as I get a little bit of a lift, I bring my arm underneath like this. We can see how while Rob still has some base and he's placing his knee on top of my forearm, my elbow, or my bicep, he's not in contact with the ground. I am already starting to shift him just slightly. This is very incremental. It's not making a huge difference, but it gives me the ability to be able to use this as a placeholder that I'm going to be able to as well be able to start lifting up, and I'm going to walk my hips underneath his knee. So if I can't really lift his knee up to do it for me, I'm going to hold it just here in place, and I'm going to start walking myself underneath it so that now his knee is on top of me.
And this is so important because I can't put him back into that 3/4 mount. I can't remove this arm. I can't access it as a lever because I'm literally pinning it to the ground.
Yeah, if he wants to move my arm, he's going to have to back up for himself to be able to do that, and that's going to give that. So here, and this is where like the deep half stuff works really well too, because I'm going to be able to do all this motions at one time and just walk myself underneath. But same thing here. That frame, as long as it's on the right, on the side of his hip, because even here, this is just going to turn into a hook with a back take. So if that elbow drifts across like this, and I think that I have half guard, no, it just helped him. He's quite happy to let that stay there. So as I get this position, I can't get that arm in still, or I can barely get it in. With that motion and that fulcrum of bringing this thigh up close to his shin, up to his knee as much as possible, then I'm going to be able to turn my hips and lift this. This is a placeholder just to hold it in place while I walk myself underneath so that I can bring in that bottom knee. That's usually the path that I end up going the most, so that I can throw this leg over and start getting frames reestablished.
So yeah, this is not our preference.
Nope.
Obviously, we want the frames, we want to get our knees in the way, but, and this is like, you know, I think we talked about this a little bit in the idea of like staying safe and how do we actually escape. You're not likely against an experienced practitioner to do one move and escape. So oftentimes we'll be trying to do the frame and hip escape, and our partner's reactions will prohibit that. So we'll have to go to this lever-based hip escape. And then while we're trying for the lever-based hip escape, sometimes our partner will react in a way that denies us access to that ankle, but it allows us to get our elbow back inside of their knee and create that scaffold. So kind of going back and forth between these, between threatening to go to this lever and threatening to go to this lever with our frame, gives us the response that we want. There is one instance that is quite predictable, however, where the attempt on our part, the person being mounted, to escape between this frame-based and this lever-based escape transition causes our opponent to really tighten up and cross their ankles and really attach themselves to our hips. And in the next video, we're going to talk about what we need to do when that occurs.